All right, everyone, this is Justin Michael, and I have in front of me a deck called Tales of Anieth. It is a Celtic-themed deck. It's based on a graphic novel by an artist named A.R. Stone. And I found this on Etsy. It's not a tarot deck that's very common. I've never seen any walkthroughs of it or anything. And I was actually I'm always looking for Irish decks or Celtic decks, and it's just something I've always been interested in. And I found this, and so just to give you a little background here, so I have the graphic novels on my Kindle. I'm sorry if that's glary, but let's do it this way. So this is the graphic novel. So you have a list of cast of characters. So this takes place actually around the time of Stonehenge, early Middle Ages. Something like that, you know, and it's a fantasy, and it deals with, you know, Celtic Druidism, things like that. Very, very cool. And this deck is amazing. It's really interesting. It comes in, first off, it comes in this really cool bag that I just really love. It has a drawstring, and the inside has like silk lining almost. It's really, really pretty. Feels really nice. I'll tell you a bit about the card quality before we get started. The card quality is on the thin side, but it's a 90 card deck. It actually has 5 suits, and I don't want you to get turned off and you know, pass judgment on this deck yet, because it's very interesting. So just hang around for a second and get to you know, hear me out about the setup, because it's really, really cool. But the card stock, although it's thin, it sort of reminds me a little of the mythical creatures paper. It's not the same. It's obviously, this is better paper, the mythical creatures, but it almost reminded me of that when I felt it, because it's thin, but it's kind of like, you know, nice paper. It's obviously going to be, and it's not cold stamped, you know, some of you probably are like, he's crazy, don't ever commit blasphemy like that, but this is really a beautiful deck, isn't it? Oh God, I love that deck. So, and there's something in common too with this deck. The Fools are named the same thing, actually, and maybe that's why I was thinking of this deck too. But so that's an Amadon, and then the name on here is Amadon, but it's in a different context here, and I'll get to that. But this is based on the Celtic sort of motif, the mythology of the Amadon, which was a fae folk that is like one of the deadliest of all fae. If you encountered this fae, you completely lost your mind. You were touched and couldn't return. And I found that to be pretty interesting. So it has 22 major Arcana cards. I showed you the backs, right? It's got these black backs here. So the 22 major Arcana are basically the same. The only difference is that the names are in Gaelic, and you're not going to... See, the way this came to me was, when I received the deck, they were all mixed up. And I was so frustrated, because I'm looking at literally Gaelic. I remember, you know, hearing that as a kid, like, what am I speaking, Gaelic? That's what the old Irish guys would say. Like, but literally, it was all in Gaelic, and I couldn't decipher what card was what, because they were all mixed up. But, you know, it actually worked out well, because it being in disarray like that sort of forced me to become familiar with the deck while putting it in order. So I did put it in order. It comes with this little white book, but there is a website, and it's, I believe, Anieth.com. I'll show you. I'll put it in the description box, and I will show you after the video. But this deck is by Lucia Shields, and so, you know, it basically has a brief kind of outline of the suits and the majors. The Gaelic terms are translated. So let's just get started here. So we have the first card is the Fool. And the Fool is a child or the novice who sets foot upon the path of development. The word Amadon literally means non-minded. That's where that's the Gaelic term. That's where the legend of Amadon comes from, because you would lose your mind after you were touched by the Amadon. So, but I'm not going to get too much into meanings, but the Ogham letter is A. If you're not familiar with Ogham, here's an example. This is just a little wand that I made for myself. This is Willow. But the Ogham alphabet is the old ancient Irish alphabet. And they're like sort of in the shape of trees. Each letter is also corresponds with a tree. And I'll tell you a bit about that in a little bit. But really, really cool. So let's just keep moving here. It's just, it's really a different kind of deck. I'm just getting some notes. I have some notes written because it's a bit much, this might not be for everybody, but I really don't mind learning about it. So this is the Magician here. And the Magician card represents the unexplained miracles, magic, or trickery that the current does not understand. The word Fyrtak means tricky man. So, and this one corresponds with the Ogham letter F, which is the Fyrn, the alder tree. And so there's tree symbolism all throughout the deck, even in the minors. And you will see that there's all sorts of reference to the Ogham. And this here is the High Priestess. It's an image of an ancient kind of spiritual channeler. The priestess or goddess lived in every spring and river in ancient Europe. She was also the caretaker of animals, the bringer of fire, teacher of crafts. The priestesses of Brigid and the Vestal Virgins were dedicated to this kind of magic. So I always think of, and it's really a beautiful image, and you have all the fern kind of, lumped in there. And it's just interesting. Actually, that's probably willow. I'm not sure if that's fern or willow. It looks kind of like fern. But the interesting thing is my grandfather's mother, his stepmother, was raised by a woman named Ellen, but he used to call her Bridget because she was from Ireland. So he always called her Bridget. So anytime I hear that name, I think of that. She's like the patron saint of all of Ireland. She's probably more so than St. Patrick, patron saint of Ireland, like her and St. Brendan. And this is the Empress. The Empress card symbolizes the desire force in the world. So the desire force in the world, a passive rather than an active voice. It is a rich call of the female earth, the ocean, or that which needs to bear fruit and transform over time. So it may denote a desire in the current to gather power from the other in order to learn, grow, and shape the future. The word Ir means new earth. So that's the Gaelic word there. And the Ogham letter is U, and it corresponds to the Ura tree, U-R-A. It's the heather tree, which is Ura. Almost identical. Spelled a little different. And we have smocked here, and of course it's Gaelic, so I might be mispronouncing the words. This is the Emperor. Sometimes in Gaelic, words are spelled a certain way and they look like they're pronounced one way, but they're pronounced another. A good example of that would be Sean, S-E-A-N, things like that. So Emperor here is the representation of rage, force, or the force of living blood, and sap that makes life burst forth. The word smocked means rule and discipline, but it also means to penalize, fine, or subjugate. The Emperor card may symbolize a passion in the current or in the question that demands and to be seen and heard. Ogham letter is Z, the blackthorn tree, which is strafe. Blackthorn is what shillelaghs are made of. It's a really thorny tree, and a lot of times they're outside of churches, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so we have here the Hierophant, and looks like Ogham, something like that. Hierophant is a sacred or holy ritual of initiation or union that introduces the current to the door of the path. The card may also be a door guard or a medium through which a person passes from one life to another. The card means both a union of two worlds and a threshold into the unknown. The word Ogham means all, A-W-E, and the Ogham letter is H for the hawthorn tree. So I'm not going to obviously tell you about every single one. We're going to go through the majors. So this is Lovers, the Chariot, and it has a different sort of set of meanings. The whole deck is very different. But you could, of course, read this however you like. You don't have to go by the system. You could even take out the last suit, which I will get to when we get there. So this is Strength, card 8. Big wolf, isn't it? Gigantic wolf. I actually love that image. And then we have the Hermit here. So because there's 90 cards in the deck, I'm not going to take too much time, so we're just going to flip through. But we got the Wheel, right? Okay, and then this is Justice. It helps to know the order. This is the RWS order. Helps to know the order because it is in Gaelic, right? So this is the Hangman. And Death. These are all images taken from the graphic novel, which is really interesting. It's a whole world that exists in this graphic novel, and it's amazing. It's awesome. I actually have all the graphic novels. I'm reading them now. So this is, let's see, what was that? That was Death. So this is Temperance. Mith. Let's just read what that says there before we go. Temperance card does not just mean to all things in moderation. It means forgiveness, patience, and deep compassion. This is the card of Mary and Kuan Yin, the card of mercy and empathy. Many people come to this state only after experiencing great suffering and pain. I always associate the Temperance with the pain, the sort of grief after death, because it's the card after death. And I have a story about that. I'm not going to get into it, but it was a very powerful reading that I did for when my uncle. I got some bad news about my uncle, and I pulled the Temperance card, and I knew what it meant, and it was really just a crazy synchronicity that I experienced. But anyway, that was okay. And so this is the Devil. This actually is interesting because you look at it, you're like, it's not Devil, but the Devil card is temptation, but is also a goading card, right? It is a reminder of the fact that life is full of small irritations that are often more annoying than the large catastrophes. Devil card is it's like a jab, it's like life jabbing you. And I think of like how you respond to those jabs, people or things that jab you, may, if you respond the wrong way or feed into something that you shouldn't feed into, because people will throw all kinds of stuff at you, and you just, sometimes by feeding into it, you make yourself weak, and you go down a wrong road, so you go down the wrong path. It's like John Ballantyre always says, the tarot guy on YouTube. He says the devil is lived backwards. So you're like living life backwards. I love that interpretation of the devil. Okay, here we have the Tower and the Star. So we're just going to keep moving here because there's a lot of cards in this deck. And we have the Moon. Beautiful Moon card. And I love this Sun card with the bear and the girl. Is that something or what? It's just really cool. I love a sunset too, man. I just love a sunset. And Judgment. And then we have the World, right? So that literally means world. So now we get into the Minor Arcana. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Minor Arcana. So the Minor Arcana is made up of 5 suits. Okay, we have Cups, which is culture. Wands, which is batai. Blades, which goes into swords, which is Siana. Stones is Klaka. And cords, right? So this is obviously sword suit, and we have some birds here. And this actually is, so this is the Muse, right? This is the first of the, let me just flip through the book, but this is the first of the, oh, I'm sorry, not the Muse. This is the Ace of Swords. So let me just go here real quick. And, well, it's actually the Ace of Blades. So humans, yeah, so this is about realization and then reverse boredom. She has a strange system where upright is like, she refers it to the breath of the spirit. Like, in other words, the in-breath and the out-breath, sort of that duality of the breathing of the spirit. So, like, upright is, for this card, it has to deal with realization because it's the Ace of Swords, but reversed is boredom. So it's pretty interesting, and of course this is something you will have to work with, you know. But I'm just going to go through these, and when we get to the core cards, I will explain. So you have the two of, and a lot of the twos have birds, I believe, which we'll notice when we go through the deck. But just to point that out, it's the two of blades. The threes all have a certain theme. And you can read about that online. And they, of course, have the Ogham, too, at the bottom, as you can see. They have those correspondence to the Ogham. And I don't really know the Ogham that well. I'm just beginning to learn it. But 4. It's like resting, right? Classic 4 of Swords. That's kind of RWS, right? A little bit. It's its own sort of deck, though. And you have the 5 of Swords here. The 6. So I'm just going to start flipping a little quick, because if not, we'll be here all day. The 8. 9. Right, 9 of Swords, and then 10 of Swords. So now you see the Ogham changes, right? Goes into something new. And now we have the Fiorna Shana. And Fior, I believe this is the Muse, right? So it's all represent shapeshifters, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken about that, but you have the Muse, you have the Protector, which is the Knight. So the Muse is the Page, the Protector is the Knight, Queen, King, and then the 5th. There is a 5th core card, which refers to Sage, which represents like the kind of guru of the suit, sort of. You know what I mean? Like. I forget how she said it in our thing. So this is the Lochna Shana. So I know that, let me see here. So Shana is blades. Yeah, we'll keep going in and we'll see here. So I'm guessing this is the this is the 5th. This is the 5th. This would be the Sage. The Sage of Swords. And it looks like Green Man, you know. He's like sitting there, but yet he's blending into the background of the tree. And then we're into Bata with Batai, which is Wands. This is the fiery suit. And this is the Ace of Wands. I know there is something about he has dots on his face, and that corresponds with the fact that he's the first stage of the spirit or something. She has an entire system, but I'm trying to remember. I just read it a few minutes ago, but I read a lot. And it's all new to me, so we're just going to flip through. But there are certain trees in the scenes that correspond with the correspondences of the Ogham. And, I'm really becoming intrigued with this deck, and I hope to learn all the characters in the book, so I can learn the deck a little better. But there are backstories to each card that are on the website. The printed version of the graphic novels are around 30 bucks each. I was looking on Etsy, but you can get them for like $2. The digital copy online, which was fine by me. This is the 6. 7 of Wands. 8. 9. And we got the 10. So now we have the Fear in the Body, or Bata, which is the, I'm guessing is the Muse. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, see, the book doesn't say anything about the Gaelic term at the bottom, but the website does. It just says the Muse of Wands represents an independent, open, inspiring person who will encourage all effort. Muse is warm with fire in the stormy night, offering comfort, joy, and welcome. This is the creative Muse loved by poets and those persons in the pursuit of truth. So I'm guessing that's what it is. And then you have the Protector, which is it's the knight, and it's all warriors throughout the deck. So each knight depicts a warrior. And I believe each muse represents shapeshifters. So yeah, she was some kind of shapeshifter. Yeah, you can see her legs are turning into fire. He's a warrior. And so, then you'll have the Queen here. The King. And then you have the Sage. And now we are into the suit of, I believe, stones, which is obviously pentacles. It's the earthly suit. And there's a lot of symbolism in the cards that are pointed out on the website. And obviously, to know the Ogham system is very helpful as well. And this just could be a good way to also learn the Ogham. And we have the Two of Pentacles, or stones. 3. So now you had the wands actually refers to action. Stones refers to physical, the body. You have the water is emotion. So it's like mind, body, action, and spirit. As the last suit is ether, which is chords. We're going to get there. I'm going to tell you about that. But so let's just keep flipping here, because I don't want this video to take too long. Okay, and so this is the 10 of stone. And so here we have the Muse, or the Page, which is another shapeshifter. Like, they're all shapeshifters, all the Muse, all the pages. And you have the Knight, another warrior. king here. And then the sage. Now we have the ace of cups here. Yeah, maybe it was all animals on the twos. Not birds, but animals. Three of cups. Kind of reminds me of a little bit of an RWS scene. And four. That stability, you know, this is the frog in his domain. You know. And here's the five, which is a couple of bats. Six. Cool. Six of cups. And seven. And 10. And then we have the another shapeshifter. I forget what the name of the shapeshifter was, but it's the basically it's the Page of Cups. Another warrior as a knight. And the queen. And the king. And we have the sage, which is the 5th court card. And now we're into the last suit, which is the stave, which is the chords. And this is all spiritual. This is all your spirit. You know, and the interesting part about tarot that I always found was the wands, the suit of wands, always had to do with action and spirit. It's kind of convenient to have a suit dedicated to action and a suit dedicated to spirit. Either, you know, if you think about it, for divination purposes especially, you know, it gives you more to work with, and the messages might be a little clearer. I'm going to try it. I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to learn about this deck, and I'm going to really try and do some readings with it and see how it works, because I am intrigued by the system. We have the 2 of chords. Three. Pushing through to the end now. 10. This is a lot of cards in this deck, you know. Some people might not like that. I feel like the more cards there are, the better. The more precise the messages could be. I feel like. I could be wrong about that, but it could maybe muddy the water too much. Like I said, I'm curious about it. I'm going to try and experiment with it. Do it in my own way. There we are. So, like I said, the card quality is not the greatest. It's a little thin, but the paper feels pretty good. It's a bit glossier than the mythical creatures, but for some reason, it just reminded me a little bit of that. It could just be the Amadon reference, but it is a little like it. It's a little also like Llewellyn too, in that it's thin and a bit glossy, but it's not too glossy. It's just a bit. It's actually got a pretty I'd say 50-50. It's a little glossy, but not too glossy, you know. But considering that it's 90 cards, you know, and they feel nice. It feels like nice paper, so I don't know. They're nice and heavy. You know, and I love the bag, like I said. I just want to show you quickly the Ogham I just received, which is the Irish Ogham deck. And I see this on the Hermit's Cave all the time, and I wanted a copy of it, and it sort of sparked my interest in it. But then I realized that, you know, my friend Simon, who you may or may not know from the Hermit's Cave, he pointed out that they are slightly different. The Ogham symbols in here, some of them are different, and I've separated the ones that were different and the same, but it's just pretty cool to have. I read about the Ogham is that, you know, not all the trees can be verified. I think there are only 5 that can be verified that are still around in existence. The others, they really can't translate. It's all speculation. So there are different schools, and some argue for some trees and some argue for others. And there's also 2 different types as well. I believe like there's the ancient Irish, and then there was a revival of it sometime. It had something to do with the Irish settlements in Western Wales during the Roman occupation. There was like some kind of thing then, but so yeah, this is the one Ogham that I have, and it just has the 20 trees, you know, that correspond with all the letters. But this is pretty cool. This might help you learn the Ogham, you know, if you get a deck like this. But this might not be the best one because, like, you know, Simon pointed out to me, some of these are upside down, you know, they have different, they're a bit different than this one, but this one is pretty good. This is one that I've had, the Spirit of Nature, and these are actually 25 cards. So there's 5 additional too that you'll often see, but this is pretty cool too, and it comes with a book. I felt like the first one I just showed you was beautiful, but it's, for the price, it seems a little meh. You know what I mean? It's a little pricey, and you don't get much. Plus, it's different. I would stick to something that everybody in the community kind of agrees with, at least to learn with, and then. But I just want to show them to you, and yeah, I guess that's about it. I think this deck would be good for ancestral work. If you're doing ancestral work, I found it to be pretty, you know, it seemed pretty good for that purpose. And also reading the book would probably help you with the deck. But like I said, it's probably not for everybody. But I really like it, you know. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully that wasn't too long. And I hope you are enjoying your lockdown and, you know, staying healthy, and all the best to you and your family. And hopefully we'll talk soon. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.